Hey everybody, in a previous video I provided an overview of the transition logic playlist functionality in the motion design toolset that comes with the new Unreal Engine 5.4 release. In this video we're going to take a more practical approach and go step by step through starting a project that uses the rundown system so that you can get working with it right away. So I'm starting out by just launching Unreal Engine 5.4.0, the release version, and that brings us to our new project tool. And I'm going to go ahead and use the film and video live events templates and create a blank project. This will activate some of the media tools that will be useful, like the Blackmagic plugin, as well as the virtual production utilities kit that can be handy for our materials editing. I will give this project a name and I'll just call this step by step. And I will go ahead and activate ray tracing for this one. And that's about it. So we'll go ahead and create that and pick up once this is ready. Okay, so we have our blank project ready to go. There's a few settings that we'll need to make adjustments to that are going to require a restart. So we'll want to take care of those first. The first of those, of course, is getting our plugins going. So I'll go to the edit menu and plugins, and we'll activate motion design. All right, here's motion design, and we'll say yes to the experimental. We know it, and we'll go ahead to Storm Sync. We'll want to activate both of those because it's handy for importing and exporting things. And so those are both active. And I think everything else that I need was activated by the fact that I did a film and video project. So for example, if I type in virtual production, yeah, the utilities are active. So that's good. Media IO framework is good. Blackmagic is good. So that's it for our plugins. There is one other setting that I want to make sure gets adjusted, and it's going to be in the project settings. So I'll go to edit and project settings. And I need to adjust how alpha channel is handled in this project. So type in alpha here. And instead of linear color space only, I do want to click this drop down and choose allow through tone mapper. And this is important for much of the motion design alpha channel handling. Okay, so I will go ahead and restart now, and we'll get to work when this comes back. Okay, so we're back. We should be done with our restarts. I do want to adjust my frame rate. So I'll just go to edit and editor preferences. And then again, I'll scroll to the bottom where we find motion design, and I go to sequencer, and the default is 60 frames a second with a drop frame for broadcast. My Blackmagic gear is set up for 30 frames a second. So I'm just going to switch this to 30 FPS, and this way anytime I create sequences they'll automatically be at 30 frames per second, which is perfect for my little desktop video setup. All right, so that is done, and we've got our blank project with an empty level, and I'm not even going to bother using that. We'll just start from scratch. So right click, I'll create a new folder, and we'll just call this step by step. And double click to go inside there. And for playlists and rundown, all those sorts of things, what we want to do first is set up a common camera and potentially common lighting setup for all of our levels, because if we're going to play them out of a single channel, they all need to play from a single camera. We don't use the camera cuts track so much if we're going to be doing live broadcast. So we're going to set up a set of common assets that are going to be used by all of the transition logic levels that we will create. I'm only going to create one for this tutorial, but let's start with getting the common stuff going. So I'll right click and create a level, and I'll call that TL-common, and Control S to save it, and double click, and we should just get a nice dark screen. And I'll go ahead and activate motion design for this. This will give us our remote control, which we won't need, so I'll close that. And we've got sequencer sequences and all sorts of things activated. The main thing I want to add to this level is our scene defaults. So right here is our motion design create defaults button. Click on that. I'm not going to bother with the directional light. We'll just use the skylight, and we should be good with that. So I will deactivate the directional light. We'll take the scene root, the skylight, post-process, and cine camera and spawn those. And now they all exist here. And we'll go back to our content browser, Control S to save this. And this will now be our common set of assets. Now, one of the cool things is it's good to be able to glance at these icons and know what's in them. So what I want to do is have a thumbnail for this that is evocative of the fact that this has got our camera in it. So I am going to eject from our camera. I'm going to switch into default viewport, select my camera, tap F to frame that up, and then Alt left click to spin around and fill the screen with that. So there we go. So whoops, maybe not fill it that much. Okay, so now I want this to be my thumbnail for this. So I'll right click and Asset Actions and Capture Thumbnail. And there we go. So now I've got my camera in here, save all, save. And it'll be really easy for me to spot this when I'm going to use it for future levels. All right, so that is ready to go. I will go ahead and right click, create a brand new level. This will be our first actual transition logic motion graphics level. And I'll just call this TL-L3 for lower thirds and first try. All right, there we go. And Control S to save that, double click to open it. Okay, nothing up my sleeve. There's nothing in here. Nothing in the outliner, nothing in the layers. Levels. This is where we want to put our common stuff that we created just earlier. So I'm just going to drag this level over into our levels. And really important, right click this and make sure that we change the streaming method to always loaded. This way, anytime this level loads, our camera and that skylight load. And then I need to double click on the persistent level. The persistent level is this level, L3 first try. And I want this double clicked and made bold so that anything I now add to this level goes into that persistent level and doesn't accidentally go into TL common. All right, so we're good there. Control Shift S to save all. And now let's get to work on our motion design. So I'm going to activate motion design again for our L3. And we will get into some remote control for this in a little bit, but for now I'm just going to close it. And we will want to switch to motion design mode. We are there. I just want to make sure I'm looking through my avalanche camera or the motion design camera here. There we go. So now we're looking through that, and maybe I want to have some guides as to my video safe and title safe areas. So I will go over here and toggle that display. There we go. And I'm going to keep everything inside here. Okay, let's get some basic actors in place for this. So I'm going to create a rectangle. So we'll click, and there is our rectangle. I want to change some of these settings. So I'm going to go ahead and activate this little shape editor overlay, and that will be right here. And I want this to slant in on the left a little bit. And let's make that rounded off there. So on the top left, we're just going to increase the size of this, maybe 10. There we go, a little rounding. Maybe I want this, oops, sorry, rolled in too much. I'm just using the mouse wheel. I've gotten away from the centering of that camera, so I'm just going to tap the home key, click in the viewport and tap home. There we go. And then we can select our rectangle. I can adjust our height and width. Right now they're locked together, so if I adjust one, they both change. So I'll select this and change that to free. And now I can change the height independent of the width. And we'll make it the width something like this. Let's round this a little bit in the lower left, so bottom left. And I'll just put in like a 5 here. And I'll make this a little cut-in tab here on the bottom right. So with the bottom right, I'll go ahead and put in like 15, so we cut in quite a bit. But instead of 8 subdivisions, I'll just set 0. Now we get a little diagonal there instead. And finally, we'll just round this off a little bit more. And that is our top right. So we'll give that just a little bit of rounding, 10 10? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so there's our shape, and I will move this into position. We've got snapping on, and so I'm going to deactivate snapping for the level, and I'm also going to deactivate snapping in motion graphics. So now I have the ability to smoothly put this into position, and again, we'll just adjust the width a bit here so it fills out our space down here at the bottom. All right, good. Control-Shift-S to save all. I shouldn't need this anymore, so I will deactivate those settings, and let's close this a little bit. Okay, so this is going to be the background for our lower thirds text for this little setup. So I will call this the bar. So I will just call this BAR-RECT for bar rect. I just clicked on this twice slowly to activate that, or I could hit F2 to change that name. Let's change the color of this. Wow, I'm clicking around and accidentally creating static meshes. Let me select those and delete those. All right, so clicking on this bar, I will go to details, and I'm just going to initialize this as a nice dark blue and say OK to that. And the nice thing to know, okay, is this location, the X direction, that's our front to back in motion graphics. It's set at 0. So anything I want in front of this, I'm going to have a negative X number. And anything that I want behind it, I want a positive X number. So one thing is I want a nice little bit of trim over this. So I will go ahead and create another rectangle. Click, click, and there's the rectangle. You know what, actually, let me just delete that, and I'm just going to click on the existing one and Control-D, duplicate it. And I'm just going to call this trim rect. And so this is a whole second rectangle, and I want this to have a little bit of a gradient. So rather than simple solid, let's go ahead and go into Material Designer for this one, and I will select the material. I'm going to change that from texture to gradient. I'll go ahead with linear on that, and let's rotate that around. I think I want the highlight on the left. Maybe we'll do some mirroring, and there we go. Now that's kind of cool. Maybe we just adjust a little bit of offset to the left. There we go. So we don't go quite fully to black here. And I can also deactivate this lock and see if I want to make any other adjustments. Yeah, this is good. All right, so I've got a little gradient going on here. So I will accept all of that and close it. And finally, what I really want to do is make sure that wherever this rectangle goes, this one follows right behind it. So this new one, I'm going to put at a +1, so that way it'll fall behind our first one. And then I'm going to add an operator to this, a modifier operator that's going to tell this rectangle to follow this one. So I will add a modifier, and in this case it is going to be auto size, and we're going to reference the bar rectangle. So I'll just click here and say bar rect. And so now it's exactly the same size and position as the bar rectangle, but I'm going to add a little extra padding. So I want it to stick out a bit on the left, so I should be able to, let's say -5, oops, +5. There we go. Now we're sticking out a little bit there, and maybe a little bit at the top, 3, and maybe that's a little much, 2. There we go. Maybe this 5 is a little much, 3. Okay, there we go. So now that is kind of giving us a little bit of highlight and along this top edge. So the nice thing is now if I were to animate this rectangle, that that highlight behind it always follows, and that includes if I select this bar rectangle and I change its scale in any direction, that highlight is always going to follow. Now that I mention it, I want this animation, when we're going to take it in and take it out, I want it to kind of pop in and extend from the left. And right now my uniform scale, my horizontal alignment is center. So if I were to adjust the size, we're sizing from the center. So I'm going to change that to left, and then we'll just have to move this over. And again, our little highlight is following along. There we go. And now if I want to, I can animate, and it's animating from the left. Okay, so that gives us our little highlight. Finally, we just want to put some text in front of that. So I will go to our motion design actors and click twice on text. And we'll select that text actor. I want that centered. I'll keep it here where we're aligning to the first line. I want to not use this Roboto font. And so I'm going to go into my system fonts here. And I've been using this Futura, and I'll use Futura Heavy. There we are. And maybe we try Heavy Italic. Ta-da. Okay. And I want to bring this font into my project so that if I'm synchronizing with other computers and packaging my assets and all, that this font automatically comes along with that. So I'm going to import that system font, and now it's in the project. If I want to see where that goes, it's in the content browser. Under content, there's now a system fonts, and so that's where all that went. Okay, so let's do a Control-Shift-S to save all, and we'll go ahead and position this. It's going behind, so we want this to be closer to our viewer. So let's put in a -1 here. There we are. And I will lock all my scales together and scale this down a little bit. Position it there in the front. And I think I'm good with all of that. I will just say this is the title. Okay. G, see how my descenders are working. All right, so let's just bring this in a little bit smaller. And that way I should have room for my descenders. Or I can just activate this force uppercase, and then we've got like a big bold title. So maybe I'll just go with that. So let's get rid of that G and enter and Control-Shift-S. All right, so this is really the overall setup in terms of the layout of our assets. Now what I want to do is make this into a template that will be editable, and that involves our remote control window. So I will activate remote control, and we're in setup mode. Wonderful. So for the title, I might want to change the text. So I'm going to go here for the details of my text, hit the controller to add that. I will also add the color so that we can change the color of our text. And finally, I want to be able to change the color of this rectangle. So I'll select that and find the color. There it is, and add that. Let me give these things names. So title, text, and we'll give this text color, and we'll give this the name of bar color. Okay, so these are the properties that we'll be able to edit in our playlist. So now I want to rig these, basically hook them up to controls that will be editable. So let's activate our logic, and I can add the controllers. So I'm going to add a string controller for the title. I'm going to add a color for the text and a color for the bar. And these IDs, I'm going to give them, let's see, we'll call this T001 for our text 1. We'll call this C001 for our color 1, and C002 for color 2. And we'll make sure that this is blue, nice little dark blue. And this is going to be white. And our text is going to be hello world. And finally, we just need to bind these, and we can do that manually, or we can drag and drop. So manually, if I select this and I just want to bind it to this, so I can go here and bind, and then select the bind, and drag this over here. Of course, that's a lot of steps. So I can also just drag and drop this to here, and drag and drop this to here. So now all of those have their bindings, and later we'll get into other behaviors like conditionals and those kinds of things, but this is good for now. And let's just give this a description. So this is a title text. Oops. And this is title color. I'm just double clicking to get into these edits, and double click. So bar color. And now we are good. So let's save that. And we're good with remote control. These are all bound. Let's do a save all. Yep. And that's good. All right, let's close that. So that's all ready to be edited in our playlist. What are we missing here? We're missing sequences and transition logic. So let's go into the sequencer. And I'm just going to make this really simple. I'm going to have a transition in sequence that we reuse for transition out, and we'll just start with that. So we have the default existing sequence, which has absolutely nothing in it. And I'm going to right click here, apply a preset in. And what applying this preset did is change the name to in, and it also changed the sequence tag to in, and that'll be used by the transition logic. Okay, so what I'd like this to do is be really, really quick. So I'm just going to knock this down to about 1 second. And I want everything all finished right here. So I'm really only going to need to edit the animation of the text and the background bar. So the text, I want it to fade in. So I'll select the text for now. And I want to be able to have translucency. So let's see if we can find, here it is, translucency style. I'm going to change that to translucent and make it fully solid, make it 1 right there. And then I want to add this opacity as a keyframe right here. So let me extend this so we can see this. You know, I don't have to extend that. I can just click this little ellipsis and choose create key, but it's falling off the edge of my screen here. So I'm going to say this, add a keyframe. And so now I've got a keyframe for my opacity of fully 1 on, and I'll just go back a few frames, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I will set that to a keyframe of 0. I have not activated my auto keying, so I'm going to do that now. So auto key, so just a little button right here, auto key. And now if I make any changes, like going in here and typing the number 0 and hitting enter, now I've got a key, and that's faded out, and I hit play, and that fades in. Okay, so at this point here, I want to make sure my background bar is at full size. So I will select that bar, add that to my sequencer. I want to add its size. I'm going to animate the size. I'm not going to use the transform, by the way. I want to use right here the mesh size, because this is dynamic, and this is going to take advantage of the fact that we're horizontal aligned to the left, and that it's going to drive the movement of that highlight. So I am going to add a keyframe right here for the mesh size, and that is both our X and our Y. And so before that, we will go ahead and collapse that to 0. So I think it's the 7999 here. I'm just going to set that to, let's just say 1. There we go, down to nothing. And then we just want to set another keyframe where this goes out of frame, and that is a transform. So actually, let's go back to here. Let me add a transform, and we will key that and go back a few frames. 1, 2, 3. Make it nice and quick. And finally, I just want to take my Z location, right? Transform, right? So Z is up and down. And at this point, I just want to lower it so it's completely out of frame. And so that is our in animation. So if I play this now, there we go. Perfect. Control Shift S, save all. All right. So I am also, just for use with the transition logic, I'm going to tap M right here on my last frame, M. That's a marker, and that marker is A, and it can go in both directions. And this will give me the opportunity to tell the transition logic what range I want to use, and if I want to play backwards from marker A, then I can tell it that. So let's just get this playing in transition logic. I mean, we have enough here to be able to go in and out, and so Control Shift S, I think I maybe already did that. So let's get our transition logic going, and then we can get it into playlist. So first of all, we want to click the ellipsis and activate transition logic. By the way, if I go into transition logic and we see this little warning, that's because I haven't activated it yet. So we'll click the ellipsis and enable it. Now we get our green check. And then I need to be able to assign this to a layer, and that will need an asset. There's no assets yet. So let's go to the content browser, right click, and we'll go to motion design, and we're going to create a tag collection. This will be for our layers. So TL-layer tags. Control Shift S is saving everything that we've done so far. Double click on those layer tags, add a layer tag, and we'll just call this L3 bar. And this will be the name of the layer for this bar. So we'll save that and close it. And then we'll go here and say that instead of no asset, we want this asset. And the layer is the L3 bar. And compile and save. And so let's just double check our logic here. And so if there's nothing in there, if no scene in the same layer, or if there's a different scene, what we want to do is check if we're playing out, then we want to play a tag out. Wait a minute, we don't have one of those. So instead, if we're transitioning out, what we want to do is we want to play the sequence that is our in tag, right? So we're going to play our sequence. The tag is going to be in because we have one of those. If I go to my sequencer, there's the tag in. But we want to play play settings. Sure, we're going to start at frame 0. We want to define this range. And this range, even though we're going to play backwards, we want to set this range so from the start to finish, min to max. So we'll keep this min as being start 0, but at the end, I'm going to set to mark and A. So this is going to say that the range goes from 0 to A. So that takes care of that. And play mode is reverse. And then we wait until stop, and then we'll finish, which means we've succeeded and we're all done our logic. If we are doing this and we're transitioning in, then we're going to play forward from 0 and we're good. And finally, there's some logic here about if a new copy of this same scene is coming in, then we want to do change. I don't have change set up yet, so instead I'm just going to say, hey, just play if I'm transitioning out, I'm going to go ahead and play from start to finish backwards, reverse, and I'm just going to play the in, right? So if I'm changing, I'm just going to play my in backwards to get it out of there. And then if I'm coming in, I want to wait until other stuff happens. And then I'm going to play my in. And the play settings should be, we don't want to start at A. We just want to start at frame 0. And we'll play forward. Okay, great. And then we finish. So that compiles. Let's make sure we save on compile, save on success. There we go, save. And so there it is. We've got a basic sequence set up. We've got our transition logic set up. We are ready to put this into a playlist. So let's go ahead and go into Content Browser. And also, by the way, we have our template remote control set up. So let's right click, Motion Design. We're going to make a Motion Design rundown. That's our playlist. And I'll just call that TL-playlist01. Control Shift S, save everything, double click. And first thing we'll want to do is bring this level in as a template. I could drag it and drop it, or I can just add a template and select it. Level 3 first try. And it recognized the layer that we set. That's all wonderful. And so now we can right click and create a page for that. And select this. And here's our hello world and our color. So let's say that this is our first title of the show. And Control S, and maybe we just give this another color, maybe a little burgundy. Okay, and Control S. And I'm not going to bother setting up the broadcast settings for this. I don't have my video on, but we can use the preview window to kind of see how things are going with this. So I can say preview in, and there it is, first title of the show, and then preview out. Wonderful. By the way, if we want to see what our alpha channel looks like, we can toggle this, and now we've got our alpha channel visible so that this checkerboard, of course, is everywhere that our motion design is transparent. So preview in, and there it is, and this would be solid, and then preview out. So now we can test another copy of this, right? So that was page 1, and right click, create another page. This is now page 2. And this one, we'll keep it blue and say this is more information. Control S, save. And so let's start with our first page, preview in. That goes in. And let's fingers crossed, hopefully I did the right things in transition logic. I'm going to preview next, which should trigger this page to come in, which will tell this one, hey, you got to get out of there. So preview next. There we go. Played out, played in. Look at that. Okay, wonderful. Except, of course, what we'd probably really like to do is fade out the first bit of information, the first title and background, and fade in our second one. So let's preview out everything, and off we go. And let's make some edits to this. So I'm going to save my playlist, and we'll just set it aside for a moment. Actually, I'm just going to close it. And okay, so we want to make a change sequence so that that's separate from our in and outs. So I'll add a sequence, right click, apply a preset, change, and I will use 15 frames, a half a second to fade out, and 15 frames, another half second to fade back in. So let me take the end and set that to 30. And the change template, by the way, gave us a marker this time. So I'm going to put that right there in the middle. And we'll right click, click to the right. So this is where things start. And I'm going to use the first half of this to fade out the color and the text. So then we have a clear slate to fade up our second page. So this will be, I need to key our alpha channel for this background bar, right? So let's see here. The background bar is using a simple solid. Interesting. Okay, I want this to be Material Designer. And we lost all of our solid stuff. Okay, let's just click on here and say you are a solid color and you are blue. And we say OK to that. And then for our alpha channel, we will also say that you are a solid color and that you start out at full white. OK, and we are going to use the red channel for our alpha. And finally, we'll set a keyframe for this. Dink. All right, so now we've got a keyframe for that alpha channel. Let's go to the end of our sequence here and set a keyframe again. So we'll key that again for solid white. And then at our marker A, actually, I'm going to do just before marker A, I want this to be black. And we have auto key on, so there we go, we got a key. And I'm going to go a frame after A and set another key, make sure that is also solid black. There we go. So this will fade out the bar. So as you can see now, our bar fades in and out. We have a little odd artifacting. I've noticed this with the text. If the text is too close to the background bar, it's getting kind of absorbed by some of this. So I will fix that in just a second. So, all right, we've got our bar animated. Let's do Control-Shift-S. And I will take my text actor, let me bring it closer. Let's say -50. There we go. And position that. And maybe we'll just scale that down a little bit. I don't think we had any animation for the text size, so this should stay put right where it is. But we now want to animate its transparency. So we'll go to the beginning, and we've got the text selected. Here is our color, and here's our translucency style. So we'll go to the beginning of our animation and set a key for opacity. We'll go to the end of our animation and set a key for opacity at 1 again. And, oops, sorry, right here. There it is. And finally, here at just before marker A, I'm going to set this to 0. And a couple frames after, 1 frame after, I will also set that to 0. Okay, so this way, our full animation should fade out until we get to A, and then fade back in. And so when we're doing a change, we want whatever level is transitioning out, it's going to start at 0 and go to A. And then whichever level is transitioning in, it's going to start at A and fade in. So Control-Shift-S to save all. And let's update our transition logic. So if we are transitioning out, we've got the same scene on the same layer. I am the scene that's being told to get out of here. I'm going to go starting at 0. I'm going to end at A. I am going to play forward. And I am going to play, instead of in, I'm going to play change. So we're going to play change. We're going to start at 0, stop at A, and play forward. Then we're all done. So that's good. If I'm transitioning in, I want to wait for anybody else. And then when that's done, I go on next. And again, I want to play change. I am going to play forward. And I am not starting at frame 0. I am starting at the mark A. And then I finish. So that should be all the changes. Compile, save on success. Everything's green. There we go. Let's go ahead and double click our playlist. And let's test this out. So I'm on page 1, preview in, comes in, and interesting. We kind of lost our, I updated the material for this and I lost the binding to the remote control. All right, this is why we test. So out you go, close this. Let's go back to our rectangle and we should have our material designer material. And let's open remote control. There we are. So, yep, we need to rebind this to something else. So I am simply going to delete this. And I will go into my edit with material designer and I'll select you. And I'll click the ellipsis and I'll say expose this property. And then I will drag and drop it right onto here to bind it. So that should take care of that. Save, and hopefully our playlist will work. We shouldn't need to change our playlist. Control-Shift-S to save all. Let's close our material designer, double-click the playlist, select you. Hopefully we get burgundy. Not yet. So close. You know what? Let's just delete these. Maybe this stuff is saved in here. So I'm going to hit delete. Oh, I can't delete anything because it's playing. So preview out. Out you go. Delete. And let's delete you two. And so now let's take first try as we've now saved it and drag it into a page. And we will make this brown and we'll say first title. And then I will duplicate this and make this one blue. And second title. Okay. Preview in. Burgundy. It's working. All right, there we go. So, you know, experimental. Looks like we have to kind of clean out these things and from time to time. And if I preview next, I should fade out and fade back in as blue. So preview next, fade out, fade back in as blue. Beautiful. So that's it. That is a quick step-by-step intro into our transition logic and playlist. I hope this helps. Put your questions into the comments. There's lots more power and capability here. This is just meant to give you a starting point, and I look forward to making some more of these things. So I'll be looking for your questions in the comments. And until next time, have fun.